for this 2021 hook race. This weather briefing is sponsored by Norris Sales. And as I said, it looks like we have a pretty active weather pattern. And that being the case, I always put a disclaimer in, whether it's a quiet weather pattern or an active weather pattern. This is particularly important. As you know, on the Great Lakes, the weather can change really quickly. So it's really important that you keep monitoring the forecasts and any advisories or warnings that may be issued as we go along here. The weather can change very quickly. Sometimes the best instruments that you have are your eyes, as you can see things changing. And one of the things I recommend is that you keep the VHF tuned to the NOAA All Hazards radio, or a lot of people know it as the weather radio. And that'll just broadcast the current conditions and any watches, warnings, or advisories that are posted. And they're usually issued on that radio right away. Now you might have a weather app or something like that, and usually those are pretty good, but not all weather apps have access or make it easy to get the advisories and warnings. So keeping that weather radio tuned in is a really good idea to the whatever station is active as you sail up the lake. And really, especially when it comes to those weather apps and you're looking at radar, for example, just keep in mind that sometimes, depending on what kind of image you're looking at, the radar is delayed. Oftentimes, it's a minimum of about 3 to 6 minutes delay. And sometimes it can be up to 10 or 15 minutes delayed. So as fast as thunderstorms move across the Great Lakes, that means you may be looking at old data. So be really cognizant of what's going on around you and keep your eyes peeled, as they say, as you go up the lake. And this does look like it may be a bit of an active race. This is the severe weather outlook from the National Storms Prediction Center for tomorrow. And they do have an area of slight risk of severe thunderstorms marked over the southern part of Lake Michigan, and a marginal chance all the way up through most of the lake. So we may be dealing with some gusty winds and some abrupt wind shifts, lightning, and very heavy rainfall, even some hail and very rough seas. So be careful and cognizant of the weather conditions as you head out on Saturday. By Sunday, all that adverse weather moves out to the east. And in fact, most of it moves out by Saturday, later Saturday afternoon and evening. So I think once we get past Saturday, we should be in pretty good shape weather-wise going up the lake. It's always good to check the water temperature. You know, Lake Michigan is very susceptible to lake breezes, of course, this time of year. It's an important part of the wind structure around the lake. Also land breezes at night, where the land cools and the air and the flow turns to come off the land. Now this year, the southern part of the lake is quite warm, but the northern part of the lake is still pretty cool. So it looks like you may be sailing north into cooler water. Seems like most of the cooler water, though, is pushed over to the eastern side of Lake Michigan, and along the route that most of you will be sailing, the water temperature is a bit more moderate. This year, though, given the fact that we have this weather pattern, and I'll show you in a second, with a frontal system coming through, I'm not expecting lake breezes or land breezes to be a big influence. So right now it looks like most of the wind will be generated by the gradient. But that said, if the wind does get down under 10 knots, then certainly the influence of the land increases, and we may have some sort of component that is a land breeze at night or a lake breeze during the day. So definitely something to keep in the back of your mind. All right, now to the nitty gritty. Here is the surface chart forecast for tomorrow morning from NOAA. And you can see it has a warm front crossing the Great Lakes, moving to the east. And they're indicating an area of showers and possible thunderstorms around most of the Great Lakes for Saturday morning associated with that warm front. But more importantly, we have that, you see up to the upper left side of the picture, a cold front, which is coming southeast out of Canada and the northern plains. And that'll be sweeping across the lake Saturday evening and into early Sunday morning. So that's going to be something to really watch for. But most of our wind is going to be basically in that warm sector to start the race, where between the departing warm front and the approaching cold front, where we have basically a southerly type of pressure gradient, or a southwesterly type of pressure gradient with the wind. We change the color so it's more easily seen. With the wind coming up from the southwest ahead of that approaching cold front. Now, what happens on the lake is quite often that breeze actually gets backed. So it's a bit more southerly on the lake. So we usually have right shifted breeze coming off the shore and more left shifted breeze in on the lake. Now, as I said, that frontal system is going to be coming through during the day on Saturday, and that means we'll have, some showers and thunderstorms coming across. Now, this is forecast radar. So this is showing us the model's expectation with respect to where showers, thunderstorms will be occurring across the lake, basically between Saturday morning and Saturday evening. You can see by Saturday evening, most of the activity is shifting off the lake. There may be a few isolated cells again in the evening up across the northern half of the lake. But as far as widespread rain expectation, that appears to be mainly during the late morning and early afternoon period. So you can't expect the model to get the exact strength, location, and timing of cells correct. That is really what I refer to as a nowcasting problem. Basically, you have to kind of wait for the cells to develop, and then they will progress along in the steering winds. The model basically is telling you, yes, showers and thunderstorms are likely to develop, but to expect the model, particularly at this time scale, to predict where a particular cell is going to be, how strong it's going to be, et cetera, is really asking too much of the model. So here we look at the model as guidance to guide us through the concept that there will be showers and cells moving across the lake. Again, when it comes to actually racing during the race, a lot of your treatment of the cells and such is down to nowcasting. So identifying the cell either radar or visually, and then adjusting your course and your actions accordingly. It's always better to err on the side of caution. So if you do see a cell moving out onto the lake, assume it's going to come with a strong gust of wind, and take the necessary action before the cell actually arrives. All right, so here's the wind forecast for Saturday morning, and you can see what I was talking about with respect to the wind field, with basically southwest winds here on the Wisconsin shore, and a left shifted breeze coming up Lake Michigan, a bit stronger actually on the lake at this time. And that continues into the afternoon hours as well. But basically, for your start, it looks like there's going to be sort of a right shifted breeze coming off the shore, probably averaging around 10 knots. But when it's coming off the shore, it's going to be quite gusty and puffy. And I often refer to the gust to lull ratio. So here it looks like the gust to lull ratio is going to be quite high. So we may have gusts of 15, 20 knots of mixing air, right shifted mixing air coming off the shore, but then that'll be followed by a lull that may be down well under 10 knots at times. So a very unstable gusty breeze coming off the shore. And then as you sail, if you were to sail offshore, you'd expect the wind to back to the left and steady up. It'd be a steadier breeze out on the central part of the lake. Wave heights will be increasing as that wind increases. And you can see the wave heights increasing to sort of 2 to 3 feet as you go north on the lake. And of course, the longer the fetch, the bigger the waves. So that fetch increases with distance north, and so the wave heights are higher in the northern 2/3 of the lake. Now, by early Saturday afternoon, you can really see that weather pattern that I was talking about. And this is a real challenge, actually, for this year's particular race. So we've got this sort of right shifted gusty breeze coming off the shore, and a very abruptly left shifted stronger breeze out in the middle part of the lake. And then between those two breezes, a sort of lighter transition zone. That transition zone could be quite abrupt. In fact, depending on how much sun we have in here, we may actually have a little bit of a almost like a lake breeze developing just sort of just offshore. But the caveat here is an important one. And that is with this frontal system approaching, and as you saw with the radar forecast, there will be cells moving down across the lake. This model here is not really picking up the individual cells, and it's very difficult for to rely on models to identify wind shifts and such with particular cells. Again, they're just indicating that they'll be there. So as those cells move off the shore, they're going to bring probably some pretty significant right shifts with the wind coming in more from the west and northwest. So you'll want to be aware of that. That's going to substantially impact your course. But once the cells go past, then the wind should sort of self-correct, because it's not until late back to the left, back more to the west or southwest. Because it's not until the later afternoon or evening even that the frontal system actually threatens. So here's the forecast for 7 p.m. Saturday afternoon, Central Time. And you can see again that warm front's well out to the east, but our attention is really toward this cold front coming in from the northwest. Now notice all the rain is out ahead of it. There may be some minor cells redeveloping just very close to just ahead of the front. We saw that at the end of the radar loop that I showed you. And but for the most part, the showers and thunderstorms are going to happen during the morning and afternoon, well before the frontal system arrives. So here's the forecast wind field at 7 o'clock from the NAM model. And again, you can see that the wind field's starting to ease off. This confused wind field you see down here at the bottom of the lake is basically where the cells are by that time. So they've actually moved across the lake. There is actually, again, some indication of a possible cell up in this area Saturday evening. Again, we can't say for certain that it'll be there, but it's a risk that you'll want to keep an eye on. But for the most part, the wind is starting to shift in from the west and northwest. We see that here as that frontal system gets closer. So as the afternoon, evening goes on, we're expecting the large scale wind field to trend to the right as that frontal system comes in. Again, wave heights will be stronger sort of in the middle and upper east side of the lake, basically due to the fetch. Average wave height might drop a little bit because you notice that the wind field's a little bit lighter here by evening over a broader section outside of where it's cell affected. Then on Sunday evening, overnight, the front's coming in. The winds are shifting from the west and getting quite a bit lighter as time goes on. And then Sunday morning, we see that front is moved through and just clearing sort of the southern part of the lake by this time. And we have a broad northwesterly gradient developing at this time that behind the front. Also clearing skies, fair weather, slightly cooler temperatures. So that front's clearing through 7 a.m. You can see it right here. And so our wind is shifted more westerly, maybe even slightly west of north. We're seeing some acceleration up here through the gap, and that's quite likely to be the case. And then as we go and we see the wave heights are dropping because the winds are dropping, but also the fetch is decreasing across the lake. So flatter waters as we go into Sunday. And then by midday on Sunday, we see that broad scale, the wind is from the northwest, particularly up here toward Green Bay and the finish. But out in the middle of the lake, it's actually starting to lake breeze. So the slower boats may actually have to deal with this lake breeze effect during the late morning into early Sunday afternoon. But most of the boats coming in here will have more of an upwind type of finish with this wind coming in from the northwest, probably around 10 to 15 knots, but also very gusty and shifty. So as you can see, the forecast is quite changeable. And so the optimum route is not obvious here. The optimum route depends upon two basic factors. First of all, the persistence and strength of that inshore reaching breeze, that is that more right shifted breeze in on the shore. You can see this route here. Let me change my color. You can see this route here basically makes use of that reaching breeze and stays very close to shore all the way up. So that's one possible solution. Then there's another solution that says, well, why don't you go out in the middle of the lake and get that stronger, more southerly wind earlier on, and then you take that north. Some cells will affect you at some point along the way, but you know, this is where you get the front. Basically, you can see the wind shifting from sort of a southerly direction to a westerly direction, and there's some cell affected routing here in this middle part of the lake. And then there's this other option, which is sort of a happy um, uh, circumstance of both routes, where you have some in the middle part of the lake and then some on the coastal route going north. So there are a number of different routes routing options, and the timing and intensity and location of rain showers and cells will be really important. Again, it's difficult to determine that. So just to reiterate, the route depends on the your ability to nowcast the showers and thunderstorms tomorrow morning and early afternoon. Of course, your specific polar, if you're a fast reaching boat, then maybe that inshore course is going to work better for you. A pretty challenging course because the wind will be quite gusty coming off the shore. And also the lane is quite narrow between that reaching wind inshore and the left shifted breeze offshore. But your polar will play a role. And then finally, the latest forecast with respect to the storms and the actual frontal movement as the front comes down across the lake over time. So a pretty tricky forecast, very active forecast. I guess the good news is there's wind. It's not like the Mac race where the high pressure was important, but this one comes with some hazards, in particular the risk of some stronger thunderstorms tomorrow. So you know, make sure you're keeping up to date on the latest warnings, advisories, and radar prior to your departure, and then after your departure, if you're able. And in either case, keep careful watch with the two best instruments you have, your eyes, and always err on the side of caution. You know, it's better to keep the boat safe than it is to think you can use a cell to get a jump on the competition, because that can oftentimes bite you in the behind. So just be a little bit careful. So with that, we'll close out the share, and we can take any questions, Tom, if there's anything you want to cover.
Oops, I lost the chat window. There we go. So far, I'm not seeing any questions. Do you have an idea of temperatures for the entire race?
Yeah, they'll basically be sort of in this, you'll start probably in the mid upper 60s, maybe low 70s. And then in the overnight period, particularly after that front, it is going to get cooler down into the 50s. But as I say, the lake's actually relatively warm, so that actually works in your favor.
Yeah, and if we're reaching, it could be pretty comfortable. It was not too bad last weekend.
Yep.
Ed asks, squall Saturday, how fast may these be moving?
Yeah, they could be moving up to 30 knots, sort of from the west-northwest. But again, you know, you really just want to err on the side of caution with respect to them and not try to outsmart them, because they will always win.
Ron's wondering if the winds are likely to die at night.
Yeah, they may. As you saw up on some of those model runs, the northern part after the front, there are some light patches that develop, particularly in on the Wisconsin shore, early Sunday morning. So it is quite possible that there'll be some light patches. For the most part, though, I feel like there's going to be enough gradient behind this front to keep the wind going for the most part. The other advantage is that post front, you'll be bringing in some cooler air. That cooler air will be moving over the relatively warm water, and that actually mixes the atmosphere more and mixes more momentum from aloft down to the surface. So that helps kind of keep the breeze going as well. So I'm actually pretty optimistic that we'll keep some breeze and it won't completely glass off Sunday morning. That said, it is the Great Lakes, so so a glass off is always a possibility.
Indeed, indeed.